Hi everyone and welcome to my channel. My name's Ross and I am from Birmingham in the UK. Obviously those of you that know me will already know that information, but if you didn't know that information already, there you have it. I'm a very average guy. I'm not a millionaire. I don't have the answers to life or the key to success or anything. I live in a one-bedroom flat. I have a very modest life, but I'm very happy with it. And something that happens to be quite often, the reason I guess that I'm making this video is that when I talk to friends about things that they need advice on, or they generally come to me to vent and I give them advice freely, naturally, something that's always said is that I have a very fresh perspective, or a very refreshing outlook on things, and I'm making this in order to have like a permanent fixed thing that people can always come back to for points of reference, or just in case they need to imagine that I'm in the room with them for some reason. This is a place that you can always come back to in order to draw reference and just sort of reiterate the points that I'm about to make. I don't have the ability to edit or do anything fancy to my videos. I've already tried recording and sending them through to an email in order to do it on a computer, and it just won't work. So you'll have to do with me rambling for 10 or 15 minutes without the use of editing in order to cut out all the awkward ums and ahs. I'm sorry. But basically what I wanted to sort of address, I suppose, in this is my main philosophy, really. So the main outlook that I generally have on things is that you can really adapt to any situation as long as it doesn't literally end your life. With a bit of mental strength, patience, whatever, you can adapt, and you can come out the other side somewhat damaged but still alive, and as long as you're not dead, you've made it, and you can start the process to healing, and just be on the other end in a better situation, I hope. Somewhat hurt, but you can move forward now. So that's something that I've had to do quite often. I've not gone through anything terribly traumatic or abusive, or some really horrific things that you usually hear people say in their personal stories that have caused them to be depressed and to go through hardship and things like that. I've not gone through anything particularly terrible. My general sort of run in life has actually been quite good, and I've been very lucky to have very supportive people around me. But the only thing that I will say is that depression is something that affects everybody, whether your life's great, whether you have millions, whether you're poor, whether you have a good life or a bad life. If depression's going to come, it will come because it is biological and chemical, and it's just something that your body sometimes goes through, which of course outside circumstances can sometimes affect it, but true depression sometimes comes from purely biological and chemical things that happen in your body. So I'm not talking about situational depression. I'm talking about like medical depression that just happens to people. It's something that I've gone through quite a lot, along with obviously situational depression where things have happened in life and it's just affected me in that way, and it's been temporary and I've been fine, and then there's been times where I've got over the situation and I've still felt terrible afterwards. So I've been through all types, I've been depressed basically, I've been down, I've been out, I've been broke and whatever, I've been through it. So I've had to, be very self-aware. I'm somebody that's never really satisfied with an answer. So if I ask myself, why does that happen? And I give myself the answer, and like usually I am then in my head thinking, but why? Oh, so this and this, but why? And I'm always looking for that deeper core meaning to everything. So I've drawn a lot of strength from this philosophy that I am perpetually alone and I am responsible for me, and I have power in my life to change things for myself without outside help, because family isn't always going to be there, friends aren't always going to be there, boyfriends, bosses, whatever, they're not always going to be there. You have to learn in life to sort of go through things on your own and be okay with it. I'm somebody that's not terribly social, so you know, for some things in my life I've had to get through by myself with this sort of mentality. So I hope that by almost explaining this, that it somehow gives somebody somewhere a bit of strength, and something to sort of integrate into their life in order to get through things a little easier. Just a little food for thought, essentially. So imagine that you put everything in a pot, everything in your life. Imagine you put your family, your friends, your romantic partners, your professional ties like bosses, co-workers, colleagues, whatever. Imagine you put them all into a pot. You put water in, you set the heat to high, and just imagine in this scenario that the only things that will evaporate are things that aren't going to perceive your reality in your experience. Right. So from your perspective, which of these things will perceive through your eyes? And the only thing you're going to be left with in that pot by the end of the whole simmering and evaporating process is you, because you are the only person that is going to perceive your life. Personally, you're the only one that's going to feel things for you. You're the only one who's going to experience everything through your eyes. So you want to sort of take that melting pot, if you imagine, and every time you're confronted with a situation, you want to throw everything in the melting pot and just remember that you are the one left alone in the pot by the end of it. So you really are the only one who has a right to decide what happens in your life. So if you're confronted with being in a terrible relationship and you're thinking, I don't want to break up with them because they will be depressed or sad or, you know, whatever, disappointed in me, etc. What you have to remember is that staying in a miserable place, in this situation, it's a terrible relationship, staying in this terrible relationship for somebody else's comfort, essentially, they're not the ones living through your misery, you are. So is it really worth it for somebody else's feelings to stay in this terrible situation? The answer is no. This partner that you're staying with out of necessity, out of, you know, trying to save their feelings, whatever, they're not the ones living this misery, and they could be living life just fine the way they are with you next to them. You're not obligated or responsible for them whatsoever. At the end of the day, if you leave and they break down, that is their problem. Unfortunately, I know it sounds really cruel, but that is their problem, just like you are your problem. Don't feel obliged or responsible for anybody, because nobody should be obliged or responsible for you unless you literally depend on them to stay alive. That is really the only situation where obligation and responsibility actually play an integral role in somebody's life. So don't allow obligation or responsibility or whatever to affect this decision that you're about to make, because in order for you to get to a better place, their perception of their life means nothing. They're in their own pot at the end of the day. They're responsible for them. You are not responsible for them. or their feelings. And at the end of the day, if somebody is going to be affected by something that you do in a way that makes them cut you off or be disappointed or sad or, you know, whatever, that's on them. That's their shit that they have to go through. Excuse my French, but it is their shit, basically, to deal with. You've got your own shit to deal with, so you deal with your own shit. Nobody is obliged to look after you, just like you aren't obliged to look after them. And I always say to myself, unless a situation is literally going to kill me, the worst case scenario generally is other people's opinion of me, other people being disappointed or angry or sad. Why should I care? Why should I care what they think? At the end of the day, if this situation that I'm putting myself in is going to be a better situation for me, screw them. Just screw them. They're not the ones having to live my terrible reality right now. So if disappointing them is a stepping stone, I have to, you know, I have to go on in order to get to a better after, then so be it. So be it. At the end of the day, if they perceive things in a really negative way, there's therapy and whatever that they can go to in order to sort that dysfunctional part of their brains out, because their happiness does not depend on me, and vice versa. I literally could not care. There's some species of animals that give birth to their babies and then just sod off into the night as if they don't matter. And obviously some of their young will die, but the ones that do make it and can adapt end up living just the same. Nobody has to hold your hand and you don't have to hold anybody else's. Everybody is alone together, right? But we all have the choice to disregard and cut these ties in order to get to a better place. And I always think the ones that are worth keeping around, generally, they may be mad at first. Granted, we can't all be perfect and we can't all be always supportive. We will sometimes naturally disagree on things. But the ones who are worth it will look past this decision and continue to support you and help you grow anyway. The ones who aren't worth it will sort of cut you off and then blame you for them being upset. Which makes no sense, because at the end of the day, you know, everybody always has a choice to react differently. And if their reaction is negative and upset, like I said, there's therapy to teach them to react differently to the same situation in the future, because it is clearly a problem for them. But until that point, I don't have to be around them. I can choose to be away from it. So really the whole point of this, in summary, right, is that essentially you are in control of your own life. Nobody else is going to live it for you. Therefore, you need the power in order to drive yourself through things without really leaning on anybody else or allowing anybody else's leaning on you to stop you from doing what you want in life, because you are the only one left in that pot. You're the only one that can perceive your reality through your eyes. So you should have the power and the drive to do what you want, regardless of these ties that may sometimes hold you back. And you shouldn't feel guilty for it, because if it's better for you, the ones that love you genuinely will be happy that you've made these changes. The ones that aren't happy, generally, they'll go and live their own life, and you can both move on and live all the same. You're not murdering each other, hopefully. But yeah, just the branch that doesn't bend breaks. Just remember it. You have the power and the determination to adapt to anything. That's what has made humans so powerful over the years, is the fact that we can adapt and thrive in any situation. We can grab tools from anywhere and make anything. Anything is possible. You have the strength. Remember it. Don't allow others to make you feel guilty for doing what's best for you. You own your life, not them.